we were there on a different day.
We were there on a different day. So they're freaking liars. So whoever's telling this true story, they're liars. That's all I can say.
Welcome to Burnt or Buttered, the quick movie review podcast with your hosts, Toast
and Stetson. We're excited to talk about the Monday mystery movie that we saw yesterday. And it wasn't a movie about the Beatles.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Not a Paul McCartney sighting at all.
But it was The Last Breath, or Last Breath.
The Last Breath.
And it was an interesting one. I mean, this movie was unexpected. Well, kind of expected. Sammy and I, as the movie was about, we're always guessing, what is the Monday mystery movie going to be? And some smart kid at one point said, oh, the run times can match up. And so this was the only movie that we saw that the run times were fairly similar. But there's always a chance that it's an Apple film or, a Prime Video or movie or something like that. So you never really know. But yeah, we kind of suspected that this one was going to be it. And Sammy said that she had just watched clips from the Joe Rogan podcast with Woody Harrelson, and Joe Rogan was raving about this movie, about how good it was.
Oh, wow.
And so she's like, yeah, I wasn't interested in seeing it, but after watching the clip with Joe Rogan, I'm kind of interested in seeing it. Just because he said that it was so good.
And I missed this whole conversation.
Yeah, Toast shows up usually about 15 minutes after the preview starts.
So I can skip the previews so that I don't have to know what's coming. I like to be surprised.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with just delaying getting to the movie theater.
It has nothing to do with poor planning at all.
Yeah.
It's planned precisely how I want it to.
Yeah, he actually...
A wizard is never on time or whatever, Lord of the Rings.
He shows up precisely when he's yeah, he's actually sitting in the lobby, he's been there for 15 minutes, just waiting, peeking, trailers are still going.
Probably wait 5 more minutes. Yeah.
But he can't miss the Regal trailer where they're sitting in the car.
I wish I could miss that.
Talking about which
Sports!
movie it is. Sports! Man, whoever wrote that just needs to get fired.
Oh, buddy.
Most likely ChatGPT wrote it.
We've been talking about it. We're gonna send Regal some spec work. We're just gonna shoot some of these
for free, just so that we don't have to watch that trailer anymore.
But anyways, The Last Breath.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a movie. Surprise, surprise! It is a movie based on a true story. The title card actually says this is a true story, not based on, just this is a true story, which has me a little skeptical. However, the director also directed the documentary of this same story. So maybe he has a little more insight than most Hollywood directors.
I feel like they have a problem with telling lies too, because right before it can't, the first scene, it said only in theaters February 28th, and we saw it February 24th. So
Stetson doesn't really understand Hollywood jargon. Only means day. Only.
They said it was only going to be in theaters the one day. That's.
And we were there on a different day.
We were there on a different day. So they're freaking liars. So whoever's telling this true story, they're liars. That's all I can say.
Anyways, this director directed the documentary on the series, or on this event in 2019, and he then decided that it was a good enough story to tell to a larger crowd. So he decided to he wrote it into a screenplay with the help of a few others, and then got Woody Harrelson and Simu Liu on the cast, as well as what was the last guy's name?
Kid from Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders. And anyways, the short synopsis of this movie would be: There's a dive crew who goes to work on pipelines under the ocean. Super dangerous job, the most dangerous job in the world, it sounds like. It's comparable, and they do compare it to space travel or working in space. For these guys, it's very, very cool to do this job.
I mean, it is pretty insane. They're working at the bottom of the ocean, 200, 300, up to like 400 feet at the bottom of the ocean. And like if you've scuba dived, like that's just unfathomable, like being that deep into the ocean. And it's pretty interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah, there's like no perceptible light down there other than what you bring. So anyways, 3 of these guys, they go down to dive and work on this pipeline, and the ship's autopilot functions malfunction, and the ship starts to drift, which is attached to the bell, which the bell is attached to the dudes. And so the bell starts moving, the dudes start moving, everything starts moving. They end up 1,000 feet off course, and they only have about 200 feet of umbilical line from the bell to the guys. So one guy's just being dragged, the other guy's umbilical snaps.
Mm-hmm. And he has about 10 minutes of air in his reserve. So he has enough, because air is so compressed at 300 feet. He has like 3 tanks, which would be like 3 hours at a normal scuba dive. But because the air is so compressed at depth, he only has 10 minutes to breathe normal oxygenated air. And they have that time to try and rescue this guy before he's dead. And so the film is about that effort of trying to rescue a diver at the bottom of the ocean during a storm, and you'll see if it works.
And let's get into Behind the Butter.
Awesome. So, yeah, I mean, it's a very cool story, and very inspiring story, and miraculous that biggest spoiler there is.
Everyone survives.
Everyone survives, which is very, very cool. I mean, the guy was on top of whatever it is that they were trying to work on at the bottom of the ocean he was out of air for 30 minutes.
Yep.
So technically 40 minutes. It took 40 minutes for them to save him because he had 10 minutes of air after his umbilical got snapped, and then he was out of air for 30 minutes, completely no oxygen at all. But he somehow was able to hold on to get into the bell, and
scientists still have no actual explanation for how he survived.
The only thing that you can think of is at that depth, his everything's slower because it's so compressed.
Yeah.
That it just didn't need oxygen at that depth, for a certain amount of time. Who knows?
Super interesting.
And he had no side effects from it. You think his oxygen had no air for 30 minutes. His brain had no air for 30 minutes, no oxygen in it at all. And there's no side effects at all, no memory loss, nothing.
Yeah. Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So I guess let's talk about the filmmaking. It had a weird feel to it. It was kind of slow. It almost felt like a hybrid between almost like a documentary, but also a dramatic documentary.
Yeah, I didn't love how it was shot really at all. It felt very, very, very dramatic. It was over dramatic, and I feel like, to me, when I was watching it, I felt like it was a mix between a documentary drama / sci-fi film. And you have these, especially the ship The ship really just pissed me off the whole time. The captain of the ship, everyone around the ship, like it literally felt like you were watching Star Wars and they were trying to navigate this, like crazy thing that's happening, and you have guys rewiring everything in the ship and putting it on. You're like, can you do that? Is that possible? He's like, God damn it, I'll do it. It's just, and then they have to manually like use the thrusters to try and like, correct the ship so that they're not drifting farther away. And it's like the most dramatic thing. And the captain's looking over at the person right under the captain. I don't know what their name is. And they're just like 30 knots to the right, like 30 knots to the left, and there's like this giant like control board in the middle of the boat. And I'm sure that's exactly how it is, but it just felt awkward.
It did feel awkward. That part, it felt like they had gone so far and so trusting of their AI and their computer to drive the boat that it was almost unfathomable for them to drive the boat by hand. Like the co-captain or the first mate or whatever, she kept on saying, well, it's not meant to be driven in waters like this. It's only meant to be driven in the bay.
Yeah.
And so that was super dramatic. But then also I was thinking about the fact that this guy is rewiring. I assume that they work for a big corporation, a big oil corporation or something. And this guy is rewiring potentially what could be worth millions of dollars. And he's just splicing.
Hundreds of millions.
Yeah. And it's pretty crazy that he'd be willing to risk that. All these guys are willing to risk all of that to save this one guy.
Yeah,
it's cool.
It was cool to see them come together, and the immediate thought of the guy that's in charge of the divers, the kind of the head diver, that his job is to overlook everything. He doesn't really pilot the ship or anything like that. He's like, drop the anchor, like we need to stop right here because we can't get farther away. And the captain, like, thinking rationally, like, no, we can't drop the anchor because there's a pipeline down there and we could destroy a whole section of pipeline and then we have a natural disaster on our hands. But at the same time, he didn't just say, oh, F that guy. Like, we'll get to him when we get to him. Like, he's dead. Like, there's no point of even trying to get to him. He's dead.
We're going to get there.
Yeah, he's just like, we got to think creatively and try and figure out another way. And I think, like, you would think captains would be more along the side of, hey, that sucks that happened, and there's just not much that we can do for him. Like, I'm not going to risk the lives of all of these other people or the boat itself to try and like potentially save this guy that only has 10 minutes of air left.
And then another crazy thing is it takes 4 days to decompress, So even if they got him, if he needed any sort of medical attention, 4 days before they can even give him anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Insane. Yeah, because if they try and bring him faster to the surface, his blood's going to essentially expand, and his blood vessels and everything else, the air inside of his blood is going to expand too fast, and kablooey.
Yeah.
Freaking dunzo anyways.
So it's a tough situation.
Yeah, it is wild. Looking at the film and them getting into the capsule and knowing that they're going to be in there for 28 days.
Yeah.
They're going to be in this small area for 28 days with 3 other people. They have cots. They have one other room, and then they have like a bathroom area. That's wild that you would want to do that. Like, for 28 days, have no sense of time or anything else. Like, even when you're on the boat, you can feel the boat moving, but you have no idea if it's day, night, anything like that.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would get over that. Like, what would you do?
They're built different.
Yeah, and it is crazy. At the end, it shows that this guy, literally a few weeks after he got back, marries his girl, and then is at the bottom of the ocean,
goes back
the same spot.
3 weeks later. He's back. All 3 of those guys were back.
Yeah. Reading psychos.
So, yeah, as far as the performances, I felt like they were okay. You know, I think the captain actually was one of the better actors for me.
Really?
Yeah.
I hated
Oh, I
his
liked him.
I did not like him at all. It felt everything that he did just felt so overdone to me.
Yeah, maybe that's why I liked him.
Like Woody Harrelson's character too, like, and I'm sure that they're basing a lot of the dialogue off of the actual dialogue that happened that day.
Yeah.
And even the shots that they made, it was obvious that they were recreating the actual shots that were done, from the footage of the real dive.
Yeah.
And that was kind of cool in the way of, okay, we're really watching like a recreation of this, like it's not, it is dramatic, but we're not going to see anything too crazy. I think that's what Sammy said that Joe Rogan said on his podcast that he really liked, that there was no part of the movie that he thought, oh, that couldn't happen.
Uh-huh.
Because it all really did.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I guess there really weren't any like standout performances for me. Pretty base level. Simu Liu's performance was a little forced, it felt.
Yeah, it didn't feel genuine kind of at all, and you don't really see I guess the only saving grace of his character was after they got back to the ship, and he looks at his daughters, saying like, "Oh, you gotta leave that behind," whatever, and then he realized, and you're thinking of it in the way of he risked his life too. He definitely could have died out there. He definitely like didn't have to do what he did for this other diver. And he wanted to get home just as much as the other guy does.
Yeah. Well, anything else left to add, or?
No, I mean, it was pretty like run of the mill movie.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the final pop.
Let's do it.
I'm going to put this right at a 2. So it was a little bit boring for me. Pacing was slow. They really made that 40 minutes last into like an hour and a half. And I feel like it would have been better if they actually had a timer going the whole time, to keep me engaged. It felt not like a movie. It didn't feel like a movie. It felt like a dramatized reenactment.
Yeah, it felt like you were watching a documentary, and there were cut scenes from the documentary
where they had actors in it. Yeah.
Yeah, like when they do ones about like murders and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyways, that's my take. 2 stars.
2 on the burnt or buttered scale. I would have to agree. I think that I can't do more than 2. I would say like a 1.5 for me for this one, just because there was no crazy redeeming like things about this movie other than that it's a true story, and that it was a miracle that this was pulled off.
Yeah.
Other than that, it just didn't make me care enough. Like I feel like if they would have done more on land before they got into the boat and done less in the ocean, it would have really pulled in. Or even like the Woody Harrelson character having some flashbacks or something like that, to like really look at his other dives. There was one aspect of that, of like their first dive together, going to the ship and him talking about like, oh, one of the guys just got washed away because they were trying to grab him. That's why he like clipped himself to the container, because he didn't want to get washed away. I wish that there was a little bit more of that. I think with that might have pulled me in a little bit more and made it more entertaining, and might have got up to like a 3 or something. But there's just no chance that this film was going to be like a great one,
Yeah. Like they tried to do that at the beginning and the end, but they felt so disconnected by the entire story in between. And you're never going to draw me in if the love interest's name is Morag. Like, are we falling in love with a Lord of the Rings villain, or what are we talking about here?
Well, and I think it was because this guy had filmed the documentary, it was to his detriment because he just wanted to tell the story of the ocean better. Mm-hmm. Where I bet if I watched the documentary, I would have liked it more than the movie because I would have understood the people of the story way deeper. And I think that's what he missed going from the documentary to a movie, was keeping the people in the story instead of just, I really want to like recreate this exactly, you know, in the ocean. And so I wonder, like, for the people that watch the documentary and then watch this movie, maybe they will like it way more because they get to actually see the in-depth idea of what happened underwater.
Yeah.
Because they already know the characters.
Right.
Than us that have no idea who the people are, and the underwater scenes are kind of boring.
Yeah. I do feel like the same, that if we would have watched the documentary, we probably would have liked it more than the movie. So
yeah. Sweet. Well, we will see you in the next one. Let us know if there's anything that you like, didn't like, or if you agree or disagree with this movie, and or if there's a movie that you really want us to review. Let us know in the comments.
Pop, pop.